Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. And good morning. It's not even 9 o'clock yet, and yet I have just watched the Chinese Grand Prix, as I'm sure you have as well. It was an okay race, quite interesting. It was probably a better representation of everyone's pace compared to Australia, which was a bit of a mess. I'll get the main point out the way first. Lewis Hamilton did not prove he's back or he's still got it or anything like that this weekend. He did a brilliant job in the sprint race. He was quick in sprint qualifying. I think the nature of the sprint race flatters to deceive a little bit. I think because there's so few points on offer, there's very little motivation for Verstappen or Piastri to really push. So I think by the time he got to like 7 seconds ahead, I think it was a case that no one was really trying to stop him at that point. But he held off Verstappen earlier in the race, and that was a job well done. But again, in the main race itself, I feel like Lewis Hamilton was lacking in pace. We saw a Charles Leclerc with a damaged front wing keep up with him, be allowed past, and then stay ahead of him. And then, even with fresh tyres, Lewis didn't catch like Charles, and Charles must have been really struggling. So, is it as bad as it could be? No, he did a lot better in China than he did in Australia, but this is not the Lewis Hamilton of old who would have. Like, the thing is, that mixed track in Australia where it was wet and drying and then greasy, that was prime Lewis Hamilton territory. If you remember Silverstone 2008, those kind of conditions, he was brilliant, like untouchable. The fact that he wasn't is a sign that he hasn't got it anymore. I know he's in a different car and there's a lot to get used to, but still, he was the master of those conditions, and he struggled in Australia. Did a lot better in China, and again, the conditions were interesting. Tyre wear seemed to be an issue, but when you get down to it, the pace of the Ferrari is probably about where he and Charles Leclerc have finished in both races, but with China being less of a mess, they're about 5th and 6th, and I think that was a fair result, and they're doing okay. I don't think Ferrari have the best car in the field right now. I don't think Lewis Hamilton can really add anything to it that's going to make it any better. I think it was important for Charles Leclerc to overtake him or be let past, just to like stamp some authority on the partnership and say, hey, look, I've been here 5, 6 years. I'm in charge. I'm going first. I'm the number one driver. Charles Leclerc needs to do that all year and stay ahead of Hamilton, because if it comes to team orders, I think Lewis could probably rightly so, convince Ferrari that he should be absolutely the number one driver. I think it would be a difficult partnership if that sort of thing started to happen. As for the race itself, I think Lewis Hamilton did okay. He just didn't seem to have any real pace. Verstappen was catching him towards the end, and if Ferrari hadn't pitted him, I think Verstappen would have easily got past him. So either way, he was going to finish 6th. Verstappen was an interesting case because at the start of this race, he had absolutely no pace. He was like in no man's land behind. For most of this race, he was 3 to 5 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton, and it just seemed to be the last 15, maybe 20 laps that Red Bull came alive and he breezed past both Ferraris, really. And that's interesting that Liam Lawson is still really struggling to get the hang of this car. Perez was struggling last year. I'm sort of wondering, is this Red Bull a complete dog to drive until it's in the perfect window, and then all of a sudden it's the best car in the field? It seemed, if it's just that it needs to be on a lighter fuel load, that's not great for your season, because it always means that for 3/4 of a race you're going to be struggling. But it did seem to just come alive towards the end. I think, honestly, I feel sorry for Liam Lawson, because I think if you put Yuki Tsunoda in that car right now, he'd be doing exactly the same. And if you'd kept Sergio Perez, he'd be doing exactly the same, or around about. I think it's a difficult car to get used to. I think they haven't really got it dialed in yet. Whatever changes they've made to it to keep it up with the front-running cars has not neutered it, but maybe they've made it harder to set up, harder to keep going throughout a whole race distance. And that's going to be interesting to see how that develops over the course of the year. Because if they can sort of dial it in a little bit better, or maybe it's a setup thing, maybe Red Bull can unlock some pace and be more of a threat. But, I mean, both races so far, it's been tough going for Verstappen. He did well to finish second in Australia. He was fourth here, which isn't awful, but it's not the championship winning form you expect from Max Verstappen. Some way behind McLarens, who were, again, absolutely brilliant here. Oscar Piastri had an amazing weekend. Norris made mistakes, and he needs to stop doing that, but another McLaren 1-2. They can't really be unhappy. It looked like Norris was having some brake issues towards the end, but they managed it. It was about as perfect a result for them as you could expect. Norris had a really bad time in the sprint race and sprint race qualifying, but I think it's not so much... You're not scoring so many points in the sprint race that it really matters. Of course, if you then lose by that amount of points, it probably is quite annoying. But I think sprint race, you can probably write it off. What matters is finishing second in the race. Norris, first and second in the first two races, championship lead. You can't ask too much more of him. Piastri obviously didn't have a great time in Australia. This was something of a recovery. I think he needed this win. It'll be great for his confidence going forward and keeps him in the title fight as well, which will be a headache for McLaren. But it keeps things interesting. George Russell. I have to say, actually, Australia, my driver of the race was George Russell. I thought he did an amazing job in Australia to get on the podium. Did a brilliant job here as well. Could have been second, but he couldn't quite catch Norris at the end. I think, very quietly, he was doing an awesome job. He did a brilliant job in qualifying. That lap came out of nowhere. And then the whole race, he was within range of the McLarens. He held off the Ferraris when he needed to. It was all round just a brilliant drive. I think Oscar Piastri is the driver of this weekend, but George Russell's a close second. I thought he did a fantastic job. And Mercedes seemed to have quite a decent car. As for everyone else, 7th and 10th for Haas. Double points finish. Great job from Esteban Ocon. Again, went about his business very quietly. But for Haas, looks like a good package. Oliver Behrman pulled off some incredible overtakes as well. And he made a alternate tyre strategy work for him. I was very, very impressed with Oliver Behrman and Esteban Ocon. So, as it looks, Alpine look absolutely dreadful. So, Esteban Ocon getting kicked out of Alpine and moving to Haas is a masterstroke on his part. Albon in the points for Williams. Again, great job from him. He is another one who, start of this season so far, I would say he's in like the top 5 best drivers in the field. And honestly, for Red Bull, it's another driver they've kicked out because it didn't work out. Andrea Kimi Antonelli, again, I think with this being more the normal, just a more normal race, it showed his weaknesses and what he's got to get used to. And he wasn't awful, but he was undercut after the first pit stop, got stuck in the pack a little bit, lost a lot of time. It's something he's going to have to work on, but he's still really young. This is his second Formula 1 race, and he was in the points again. I think he's got a long way to go, but he is at least finishing races, and he has scored points in both. So I think he's going to get better as the year goes on. I think towards the end of the year, you'll see him come towards the Ferraris, closer to his teammate, probably up with Verstappen as well if the Red Bull isn't perfect. So I expect more from him. I think I was a bit harsh pre-season saying that it was a mistake to put him in the car. I'm still not sold on the idea. I still think he's a bit too young, could have done with a bit more experience in Formula 2. But you've got him in the car now and he's doing okay. Outside of the points, Alpine, again, pretty awful for them. They honestly didn't really do anything all weekend. Jack Doohan kept it on the track, and that's a good enough job from him. Gasly as well, really struggled. So, not really much to say about Alpine at the moment. They are just poor. Sainz outside of the points, and he seemed to really struggle. It's a shame, but at the moment he is getting completely outclassed by his teammates. Aston Martin, Stroll went for an alternative strategy which didn't really work. I think they were just hoping and praying for a safety car that never came. It it was another half decent drive because he didn't crash or anything. Alonso broke down, I think, within the first 5 laps or so. So it wasn't a great weekend for Aston Martin either. Who else is there? Stake. They were very, very quiet at the back of the field. Bortoletto had a spin but did continue. They didn't really do anything of note. So yeah, that was the field. McLaren are still the team to beat. They're not running away with it. The gaps in this race were pretty close. I think the top 6 were all within, I think, 20 seconds. I don't know how far Lewis Hamilton dropped back or how much closer he got after his pit stop. But the gaps throughout the whole race weren't massive between the top 6, and that was nice to see. I think from Lewis Hamilton to Esteban Ocon was about 25 seconds. But the top teams were close to each other. The midfield's quite close. There's a few cars lagging at the back, but they'll get closer, hopefully. And that is keeping it interesting. There wasn't a whole lot of overtaking, but especially in the midfield, I saw a few moves from Oliver Behrman working his way forward. Tsunoda, I think we talked about Tsunoda. Another brilliant job from him in qualifying. He was absolutely spectacular. Did a great job in a sprint race as well. Should have scored points in this one, but a front wing failure knocked him to last. Massive shame. They should have put him in the Red Bull. I think he would have struggled to get used to it just as Lawson is, but I think he would have been a better choice. Lawson's just too inexperienced. I think it's going to be much harder to get him up to speed than it would have for Tsunoda if he was in that car. And Tsunoda in qualifying, you can see how quick he is, but races are just not working out for him at the moment. Hopefully next round it does. I don't think it's too long to wait till... Is it Bahrain next? I can't remember. It's not too long. Hopefully Tsunoda has a better turn of luck. Again, we'll see if the McLarens can keep this run of form going. If Mercedes, Red Bull or Ferrari can challenge them. It's been a decent start to the season. It is very, very interesting. The racing has been better than it was last year. I think we are seeing a lot more action in the midfield, especially. It's been good. I enjoy this. My voice is going because I do have a bit of a cold. Hopefully that goes away quick and doesn't get in the way of any of the videos coming out next week. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did you enjoy the Chinese Grand Prix? What do you think about Lewis Hamilton winning the sprint race? Do you think he's back? Do you think it was sort of just a flash in the pan? Let me know on who you think will be champion. Will it be one of the McLarens? Anyone else? Whatever you want to talk about. Thank you very much for watching and have a good one.